The colony ship New Dawn moved silently through the darkness of space. Inside, 10 million humans slept in cryostasis pods, dreaming of the new world waiting for them at Proxima Centauri. Commander Deho walked through the rows of sleeping faces, checking systems like he did every day. Everything was perfect. Everything was going according to plan. Nar stood in the control room, watching the stars. She was responsible for all the civilians on board. 10 million people trusted her to get them safely to their new home. She smiled as she looked at the data screens. Only 3 more months until they arrived, then the alarm started screaming. Deho ran to the control room. Outside the windows, massive ships appeared from nowhere. They were unlike anything humans had ever built. Sharp edges, dark metal, and weapons that glowed with purple energy. There were 12 of them, each one 3 times the size of New Dawn. Unknown vessels, this is Commander Deho of the Earth colony ship New Dawn, he said into the communications system. We are on a peaceful mission to establish a colony. We mean no harm. The response came in perfect English, cold and emotionless. You have entered Valorian space. This is forbidden. Deho felt his heart race. We had no knowledge of your territory. We will change course immediately. Please, we seek no conflict. Conflict. The voice almost sounded amused. There is no conflict. There is only consequence. The Valorian ships moved closer, surrounding New Dawn completely. Nari grabbed Deho's arm. What do we do? Before he could answer, the ship shuddered. The Valorians had attached boarding tubes to the hull. Deho ordered all security personnel to defensive positions, but he knew it was useless. They had 18 security officers. The Valorians had warships. Armored soldiers poured into the ship. They moved with practiced efficiency, taking control of every deck in minutes. The humans couldn't fight back. Their small arms did nothing against Valorian armor. Within an hour, every human crew member was captured and brought to the main cargo bay. High Executor Velmic entered the bay, flanked by guards. He was tall, with scaled skin that shifted colors in the light. His eyes were completely black, and when he smiled, his teeth were sharp and numerous. Wake them, Velmac ordered. Wake them all. Nari stepped forward. Please, they're civilians, families, children. If you want hostages, take us. The crew, leave the colonists in cryo. Velmic looked at her like she was an insect. Wake them all. I want them to understand what happens when lesser species reach beyond their place. Deho tried to rush forward, but Valorian guards held him back. He watched helplessly as Valorian technicians accessed the cryo systems. All across the ship, 10 million pods began the wake-up sequence. It took 6 hours for everyone to wake up. Confused families stumbled out of their pods, not understanding what was happening. Children cried. Parents tried to comfort them. Elderly colonists looked around in confusion. They were supposed to wake up on a new world, not here in the cold darkness of space. The Valorians herded everyone into the massive colony domes, spaces designed to be their homes on the new planet. Now they were cages. 10 million humans packed together, frightened and confused. Velmac stood on a platform where everyone could see him. I am High Executor Velmic of the Valorian Empire. You have trespassed in our space. You have shown disrespect to our sovereignty. Now you will serve as an example. He gestured, and screens appeared in the air above him. This broadcast is being transmitted to 47 civilizations across the galaxy. They will watch. They will learn. They will understand that the Valorian Empire does not tolerate disrespect. Nari felt her blood turn to ice. No, please, no. You wanted to reach the stars, Velmic said. Now the stars will watch you die. The killing began in Dome 7. The Valorians didn't use quick weapons. They wanted it to be slow, to be terrifying. Deho and Nari were forced to watch on screens as families were torn apart, as people begged for mercy that never came. As children screamed for parents who couldn't save them, the broadcast lasted 14 hours. The Valorians were methodical, working through each dome systematically. They made sure every death was visible to the cameras. They made sure the galaxy could see every moment of terror. Every plea for help, every final breath. Deho stopped counting after the first million. He stopped crying after the second. By the time it was over, he felt nothing but emptiness. Nari sat beside him, staring at nothing, her mind unable to process what she had witnessed. When it was done, Velmok stood among the bodies. Let this be a lesson to all who watch. The Valorian Empire is eternal. Those who challenge us face only death. The guards dragged Deho and Nari to an escape pod. Velmok smiled at them. You two will live. You will return to your pathetic little planet. You will tell them what you saw. You will tell them to know their place among the stars. Someone will stop you, Nari whispered, her voice broken. Someone will make you pay for this. Velmok laughed. Your species is primitive, weak. You have no allies, no power, no means to challenge us. Go home. Live with your failure. Know that you led 10 million of your kind to slaughter. Loaded Deho and Nari into the escape pod and launched it toward Earth. As they drifted away from the new dawn, they could see the Valorian ships destroying it, erasing all evidence except for the broadcast that was already spreading across the galaxy inside the pod. Deho finally spoke. He's wrong. Nari looked at him with empty eyes. About what? He thinks Earth will be afraid. He thinks we'll hide. Deho clenched his fists. He doesn't understand humans. Fear doesn't make us weak. It makes us dangerous. The pod continued its long journey home, carrying 2 survivors and a message that would change the galaxy forever. Behind them, the new dawn burned, and 10 million souls cried out for justice that would come in a form the Valorians could never imagine. The escape pod drifted through space for 8 months. Deho and Nari barely spoke. They slept. They ate the minimal rations. They stared at the walls. The pod's computer played the news feeds from across the galaxy. And that was worse than the silence. The broadcast of the massacre had spread everywhere. 47 civilizations had watched it happen live. Now billions more watched the recordings. The galactic networks discussed it endlessly. Some called it tragic. Others called it necessary. Many called it entertainment. What nobody discussed was doing anything about it. The Galactic Council met and issued a statement of concern. They encouraged diplomatic solutions. They suggested both sides pursue peaceful dialogue. They did absolutely nothing. Juan, Earth's diplomat on the neutral station Nexus Prime, watched it all with growing horror. He sent message after message to Earth, begging for instructions. How should he respond? What should he say? The galaxy was watching humanity, waiting to see what these newcomers would do. Earth said nothing. No statements. No threats. No diplomatic protests. The entire Sol system went silent. All communication channels closed. Every embassy recalled its staff. Every human ship returned home. It was like humanity had simply vanished from the galactic stage. The other species found it strange. The Kelrosian ambassador told Juan before he left, "Your people are afraid." That's wise. The Valorians are powerful. Submission is the only logical choice. Juan didn't respond. He just packed his things and boarded the last ship to Earth. When Juan arrived at Earth 8 months after the massacre, he barely recognized it. Every orbital station was filled with warships under construction. Thousands of them in various stages of completion. The space around Earth looked like a massive shipyard, with metal and fire and endless activity. He landed at what used to be Beijing, but the city was gone. In its place stood factories. Massive buildings that stretched for miles, all producing weapons and ships and armor. The sky was dark with smoke from forges that never stopped burning. A military transport took him to Geneva. The entire city had been converted into a command center. Juan was escorted to a building buried deep underground, where the New Earth government operated. Admiral Tayon met him in a briefing room. The admiral was a thin man with hard eyes and hands that never stopped moving. Behind him, screens showed production numbers, ship designs, and weapon specifications. "Welcome home, Ambassador," Tayon said. though I'm afraid your position no longer exists. There is no more diplomatic corps. There is only the Terran response fleet. Juan sat down slowly. What has Earth been doing for 8 months? Taeyeon smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. We've been preparing. Every nation on Earth united within 3 days of receiving the broadcast. Every government dissolved itself into a single emergency administration. Every factory stopped making consumer goods and started making weapons. He pulled up images on the screens. Ships unlike anything Juan had seen before. Weapons that looked like they came from nightmares. We've been building in a fleet. 3,000 ships so far, with more completing every day. 3,000 ships in 8 months. Juan couldn't believe it. That's impossible. Humans are very good at the impossible when we're motivated. Taeyeon pulled up another screen. Every person on Earth is working toward one goal. Construction workers build factories. Factory workers build ships. Scientists create weapons. Everyone contributes. The galaxy thinks we're hiding in fear, Juan said. Good. Let them think that. Taeyeon leaned forward. Fear is what prey feels. We're not prey anymore. We're predators, and we've been sharpening our teeth. He led Juan through the facility. In one room, strategists planned every detail of the coming war. In another, engineers tested weapons that made Juan's stomach turn. In a third, soldiers trained in fighting techniques designed for zero-gravity combat. They stopped at a sealed laboratory. Through the thick glass, Juan could see a woman working with holographic displays. Complex equations filled the air around her. It's Dr. Sora, Taeyeon said quietly. She was our leading physicist. We gave her unlimited resources and one simple order. Create weapons that will end the Valorian species. That's genocide, Juan whispered. Yes. Taeyeon's voice was cold. They broadcast the murder of 10 million humans to the galaxy as entertainment. They wanted to send a message. We're going to send one back written in fire and blood. Dr. Sora noticed them watching and came out of the lab. She was young, barely 30, with tired eyes that had seen too many simulations of death. The resonance bombs are ready for testing, she told Taeyeon. The nanomachini swarms are 90% effective. The singularity missiles need another month. We launch in 6 weeks, Taeyeon said. Sora nodded. We'll be ready. After she left, Juan turned to Taeyeon. The galaxy will condemn us for this. They'll call us monsters. They watched 10 million of us die and did nothing. They don't get to judge us now. Taeyeon pulled up a video. It showed Daeho and Nari's escape pod, which had arrived 3 weeks earlier. The survivors told us everything. Every detail. Every moment. We recorded it all. Juan watched as Daeho described the massacre, his voice flat and emotionless. Nari sat beside him, staring at nothing, her mind still trapped in those 14 hours of horror. They're broken, Juan said quietly. They're survivors, and they'll be there when we finish this. Taeyeon closed the video. The galaxy is waiting for humanity to respond. They expect us to complain, to negotiate, maybe to make angry speeches. He pulled up a star map. It showed Valorian space, 40 systems marked in red. We're not going to do any of that. We're going to do what humans do best when someone hurts our family. We're going to solve the problem permanently. You're going to kill them all, Juan said. It wasn't a question. Every last one. Taeyeon zoomed in on the Valorian homeworld. They wanted to teach the galaxy a lesson about power. We're going to teach them a lesson about consequence. Juan looked at the map at the red markers showing 40 systems full of billions of Valorians. What if we become the monsters? Taeyeon was quiet for a moment. Maybe we do. Maybe history will remember us as the species that committed genocide. But history will also remember that when someone murdered 10 million of us, we made sure it never happened again. He stood up. You can stay here, or you can join the fleet. Either way, in 6 weeks, the Terran Response Fleet launches. Earth's silence ends, and the Valorians learn what happens when you mistake humanity's civility for weakness. Juan looked at the screens showing thousands of ships, millions of weapons, and billions of humans united in purpose. For 8 months, Earth had been silent. Now he understood why. The silence wasn't fear. It was the quiet before the storm. And the storm was coming. 3,000 human warships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Valorian space. They appeared in perfect formation, a wall of metal and weapons that stretched across the darkness. At the center flew the dreadnought Reckoning. The largest ship humanity had ever built. Captain Minji stood on the bridge, watching the screens. She was 42 years old and had never seen combat before the fleet launched. None of them had. Humanity had no military experience in space warfare. They had learned everything in the past 14 months, building tactics from theory and determination. "All ships report ready," her tactical officer said. Minji nodded. "Send the message." Across every Valorian communication channel, a simple message played. It showed footage from the massacre, 14 hours compressed into 14 minutes. 10 million humans dying while the galaxy watched. Then the image changed to show the Terran response fleet. Minji's voice was cold and clear. "You wanted us to know our place? We're here to teach you yours." The first target was Keltos 4, a mining colony on the edge of Valorian space. 2,000 Valorians lived there, operating massive machines that stripped minerals from dead planets. They had 12 defense platforms and a small patrol fleet of 30 ships. The Valorians detected the human fleet and immediately sent a message. "Unknown vessels, you are in violation of Valorian space. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." Minji didn't respond with words. She gave the order to attack. The human ships moved with coordination that surprised even their own crews. Months of constant training had made them work like a single organism. Fighter wings launched from carriers. Thousands of small craft that swarmed toward the Valorian defenses. Pilot Seojin led his squadron in the first attack. He had been a commercial pilot before the fleet formed. Now he flew a combat fighter designed specifically to kill. His targeting computer locked onto a Valorian patrol ship. "This is for the children," he whispered, and fired. The Valorian ship exploded. Around him, his squadron destroyed 3 more before the enemy could even react. The Valorians were used to fighting by rules, by honor codes that governed space combat. They expected warnings, formal challenges, and structured engagements. Humans had no such rules. Engineer Haijin sat in the weapons control room of the Reckoning, managing systems that Dr. Sora had created. In front of her were controls for weapons the galaxy had never seen. She activated the resonance bombs. Missiles streaked toward the Valorian defense platforms. When they detonated, they didn't explode. Instead, they released waves of energy that made the platform's metal hulls vibrate. The frequency increased, faster and faster, until the metal literally tore itself apart from the inside. Within minutes, all 12 platforms were destroyed. The Valorian patrol fleet tried to retreat, but human ships were faster. Destroyers cut off their escape while cruisers hammered them with kinetic weapons. Solid metal slugs moving at incredible speeds punched through Valorian armor like paper. "They're broadcasting surrender," the communications officer told Minji. "Ignored," Minji said. Her orders were clear. No mercy. No surrender accepted. Complete extinction. The battle lasted 6 hours. Every Valorian ship was destroyed. Every platform was obliterated. Then the fleet turned its weapons on the colony itself. Haijin activated another of Dr. Sora's creations. Viral nanomachines, microscopic robots that could survive in space. They rained down on Keltos for like deadly snow. When they reached the colony domes, they ate through the metal, destroying life support systems. The 2,000 Valorians inside died quickly, but the fleet wasn't done. Minji gave the order for complete sterilization. Kinetic bombardment began. Massive metal rods dropped from orbit. They hit the surface with the force of nuclear weapons, leaving nothing but craters. When it was over, Keltos 4 was a dead rock. No ships. No stations. No life. Nothing remained to show the Valorians had ever been there. Mingi recorded a message and broadcast it on all Valorian channels. "You killed 10 million humans and broadcast it for entertainment? We're going to kill every Valorian we find. This is payment, and we've only just begun." The message included a counter. 10 million owed. 2,000 paid. 9,998,000 remaining. Back on the Valorian homeworld, High Executor Velmac watched the footage of Keltos IV's destruction. Around him, his military commanders argued about how to respond. "They fight without honor," one general complained. "They use forbidden weapons. They ignore surrender. This is barbaric." Velmac silenced them with a gesture. "They're humans. We expected them to be weak, to beg for mercy. Instead, they built a fleet and came for revenge." "We should negotiate," another commander suggested. "Offer reparations. Apologize for the misunderstanding." "No," Velmac stood up. "We are the Valorian Empire. We do not apologize to lesser species. Deploy the Third Fleet. Destroy these humans before they can attack another colony." The Third Fleet was 200 ships, veteran crews with centuries of combat experience. They jumped to intercept the human fleet near the industrial world of Markan Prime. Captain Minji saw them coming. "All ships, combat formation. Remember your training." The two fleets met in the darkness between stars. The Valorians expected a traditional engagement, ships trading fire at long range, following established patterns of warfare. Instead, the human fleet split into small groups that attacked from multiple directions at once. They used the asteroids as cover, appeared and disappeared, struck and vanished. The Valorians had never seen such chaotic tactics. Seokajin flew his fighters straight through the enemy formation, dodging defensive fire that should have killed him. His squadron launched missiles that tracked through space, following Valorian ships even when they tried to evade. Hyjin unleashed more experimental weapons. Some missiles phased through Valorian shields using technology that shouldn't exist. Others created miniature singularities that crushed ships under impossible gravity. Ghost drones, nearly invisible to sensors, infiltrated Valorian vessels and sabotaged them from within. The Valorians fought well, but they were fighting a war they didn't understand. Every time they adapted to one human tactic, the humans changed their approach. It was like fighting smoke, always shifting, never where you expected. After 4 hours, the Third Fleet was destroyed. 197 Valorian ships became debris. 3 human ships were damaged. None were destroyed. Mingi stood on her bridge, watching the wreckage drift past. "Set course for Marcone Prime. We have a schedule to keep." Around her, her crew worked efficiently. They weren't celebrating. This wasn't about glory or honor. It was about mathematics. 10 million lives owed. They would collect every single one. As the fleet moved toward the industrial world, Hyjin prepared the next wave of weapons. Dr. Sora had given them enough firepower to crack planets. They were going to need all of it. Behind them, Keltos IV drifted in space, a monument to what happens when you kill humans and expect no consequences. Ahead of them, 39 more Valorian systems waited, unaware that humanity had come to collect its debt. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime was filled with representatives from every major civilization. Screens showed footage from the human campaign through Valorian space. 6 colonies destroyed, 40,000 Valorians dead. The counter that appeared after each battle kept ticking upward. Ambassador Giwan sat in the human chair, the only one present from Earth. She was 60 years old, had spent 30 years in diplomatic service, and had never imagined she would be defending genocide. The Calrosian representative stood first, his blue skin flushed with anger. "The humans must be stopped. This is excessive force. This is disproportionate response. This violates every principle of civilized warfare." Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. The Torvasian ambassador added, "They're using forbidden weapons. Chemical warfare. Biological agents. Weapons that cause unnecessary suffering." Juan listened quietly, her face emotionless. When they finished their accusations, she stood up slowly. "You're right," she said. "This is excessive. It is disproportionate. It violates every rule of warfare you've established. Now let me show you something." She activated her personal screen, projecting it for the entire chamber to see. The footage from the original broadcast played. 10 million humans woken from cryosleep to be slaughtered, families torn apart, children screaming, 14 hours of systematic murder, broadcast to 47 civilizations as entertainment. You all watched this, Juan said quietly. Every one of you. Some of you were in this very chamber when it happened live. Do you want to know what you did? She pulled up communication records, diplomatic files that should have been sealed. The Calrosian ambassador sent a private message during the broadcast. It said brutal, but effective. Perhaps this will keep the humans from expanding too quickly. The Calrosian representative's skin turned pale blue. Around the chamber, other ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. G1 continued, pulling up more files. The Torvasian military placed bets on how long the massacre would take. The Drexian Council discussed whether this meant humans could be easily exploited for labor. The Philosian Empire's prince called it amusing theater. She turned to face the entire council. You want to talk about excessive force? Where was this concern when 10 million of my people were murdered? Where were the emergency sessions? Where were the sanctions against the Valorians? Silence filled the chamber. You did nothing, Guan said, her voice hard. You watched, you commented. Some of you entertained yourselves. And now you're concerned about proportionate response? The council chairman, a tall Vrexian with golden scales, spoke carefully. Ambassador Giwan, we understand your species is angry. But destroying the Valorian species entirely is not justice. It's extinction. You're right again, G1 said. It is extinction. Because we learned something from watching you all do nothing. We learned that in this galaxy mercy is seen as weakness. Peace is seen as cowardice. The only language that matters is power. She pulled up a new screen showing the Terran response fleet, now numbering 8,000 ships. You're not afraid we're being too harsh on the Valorians. You're afraid we'll turn these weapons on you next. The chamber erupted in protests. The chairman called for order, but the damage was done. Juan had said what everyone was thinking. Meanwhile, in Valorian space, Admiral Tyen's reinforced fleet reached the edge of the Valorian home system, the heart of their empire. Star system with 3 inhabited worlds and over 8 billion Valorians. The Valorians had assembled their entire defensive fleet, 12,000 ships, the largest military force in their history. Every vessel they could pull from their 40 systems. Their best crews, their newest weapons, their final stand. High Executor Velmok broadcast one last message to the human fleet. We offer complete surrender. We will pay any reparation. We will accept any terms. Please, there are billions of civilians here, families, children, the same as you lost. Admiral Taeon's response was brief. You gave our people 14 hours to plead for mercy. You ignored every word. You will receive the same courtesy you showed them. The battle began at the outer defensive line. Valorian ships formed a wall between the humans and their homeworld. They had studied human tactics, adapted their strategies, prepared for the chaos. It wasn't enough. Captain Minji led the assault with the reckoning. Her dreadnought punched through the Valorian line like it was made of paper. Behind her, the fleet spread out, gauging the enemy from every angle. Pilot Siochin flew missions for 18 hours straight, leading his squadron through a maze of enemy fire. His fighter was hit 6 times, but he kept flying. Around him, thousands of other pilots did the same. They had trained for this moment for 14 months. The battle raged for 3 days. Space filled with debris and fire. Ships on both sides were destroyed, damaged, crippled. The Valorians fought with desperation, knowing their entire species hung in the balance. But desperation wasn't enough against human determination. Engineer Hyjin cycled through every weapon Dr. Sora had created. The resonance bombs that tore ships apart. The nano-Messini swarms that ate through holes. The singularity missiles that crushed vessels under artificial gravity. And new weapons, terrible weapons, she activated with shaking hands. The ghost drones infiltrated Valorian ships, taking control of their systems. Suddenly, Valorian vessels turned their weapons on each other, unable to stop themselves. The phase missiles ignored shields and armor, detonating inside enemy ships. The tectonic disruptors caused mechanical failures that cascaded through entire fleets. On the 3rd day, the last Valorian ship was destroyed. 12,000 vessels reduced to debris. The way to the homeworld was clear. Admiral Taeon broadcast to the planet below. You have 14 hours to say goodbye to your loved ones. Make peace with whatever gods you believe in. At the end of that time, we will do to you what you did to us. Back at the Galactic Council, the delegates watched in horror as the timer appeared on every broadcast. 14 hours until the bombardment began. 14 hours until 8 billion Valorians died. We must intervene, the Calrosian ambassador pleaded. Send peacekeepers. Impose sanctions on Earth. Something. Juan stood up. Send your fleets if you want. See what happens when you stand between humanity and justice? The chairman looked around the chamber. Who will commit ships to a peacekeeping force? Silence. Every delegation looked away. Nobody wanted to face the fleet that had just destroyed 12,000 Valorian warships in 3 days. That's what I thought, Juan said. You'll condemn us with words, but you won't risk your own people to stop us. Because deep down, you understand. You understand that if you hurt humanity, we will end you. The Valorian species made a choice when they murdered 10 million of us for entertainment. They chose extinction. We're simply honoring that choice. The timer continued, counting down. 14 hours became 12. 12 became 8. The galaxy watched, unable to look away, unable to intervene. On the reckoning. Captain Minji prepared her ship for orbital bombardment. Hyjin loaded the weapons that would crack a planet's surface. Seokajin and his pilots took defensive positions, ready to stop any last-minute rescue attempts. None came. The galaxy watched and did nothing. Just like they had done nothing 14 months ago when the massacre was broadcast. The difference was, this time, nobody would call it entertainment. This time, they would call it a warning. The 14 hours passed in silence. On the Valorian homeworld, 8 billion people waited for death. Some prayed. Some rioted. Some simply held their families close and waited for the end. High Executor Velmok sat in his council chamber, surrounded by his advisors. They had nothing left to advise. The fleet was destroyed. The defenses were gone. All that remained was to wait. We should never have broadcast the massacre, one advisor said quietly. Velmok laughed bitterly. We thought it would show our strength, that other species would fear us, respect us. Instead, we created an enemy that won't stop until we're extinct. They're just humans, another advisor protested weakly. They were supposed to be primitive, weak, easy to intimidate. They are primitive, Velmok said, staring at the screens showing the human fleet in orbit. That's what makes them so dangerous. They don't follow our rules. They don't care about honor or tradition. They just care about results. The timer reached 0. Captain Minji gave the order. Begin bombardment. The Reckoning and 3,000 other warships opened fire simultaneously. The weapons Dr. Sora had created rained down on the planet below. They weren't conventional bombs. They were designed to be efficient, to make extinction as quick as possible. Atmospheric igniters turned the air itself into fire. The entire sky became flame, consuming everything beneath it. Cities that had stood for 10,000 years burned in minutes. Tectonic disruptors targeted the planet's fault lines. Earthquakes measuring beyond any natural scale tore continents apart. Volcanoes that had been dormant for millennia erupted simultaneously. Bioengineered plagues, designed specifically for Valorian biology, spread through the population faster than the fire and earthquakes. They were painless, at least. Dr. Sora had insisted on that. Quick death was the only mercy humanity would give. Engineer Hyjin watched the sensor readings as the planet died. Her hands were steady on the controls, but tears ran down her face. This was necessary, she told herself. This was justice. But the weight of 8 billion deaths would stay with her forever. Pilot C.O. Kane flew patrol around the fleet, making sure no one interfered. Below him, a world died. He thought about the 10 million who had died 14 months ago. He thought about the children on the colony ship who never got to see their new home. This is for them, he whispered, like he had before every battle. But this time, the words felt hollow. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Valorian homeworld was a lifeless rock. The atmosphere was gone. The oceans were boiled away. The continents were shattered. Nothing remained alive. Admiral Tayon broadcast one final message to the galaxy. The Valorian homeworld is no more. We will now visit every colony, every station, every outpost. The Valorian species will be extinct within 1 year. Let this be a lesson to every civilization watching. Humanity can be peaceful, but we will never be harmless. The fleet split into smaller groups, each assigned to different Valorian colonies. The campaign continued with mechanical efficiency. Every world was sterilized. Every station was destroyed. Every Valorian settlement was reduced to dust. Captain Minji led her group to the industrial worlds. Pilot Seokajin flew missions against the agricultural colonies. Engineer Hygiene activated weapons against military installations. They moved from system to system, methodical and thorough. Some Valorians tried to hide. Others tried to run to distant systems. Human ships hunted them all down. There would be no survivors. No remnant. No possibility of the species continuing 9 months after the bombardment of the homeworld. The last Valorian died on a small outpost at the edge of their former territory. The species that had spanned 40 star systems, that had existed for 20,000 years, was gone. The counter finally stopped. 10 million owed. 10 million paid. The Terran response fleet gathered at the coordinates where the new dawn had been destroyed. Admiral Tayon ordered the construction of a memorial station. It would stand here forever. It's a monument to those who died and a warning to those who watched. Back on Earth, a ceremony was held in every city simultaneously. For 3 weeks, they read the names. 10 million names, spoken aloud so they would be remembered. Daiho and Nari attended every day, listening to name after name of people they had tried to save. When the last name was read, reporters asked them if they felt justice had been served. Nari was quiet for a long time before answering. They taught us that some actions cannot be forgiven, she said softly. That some crimes are so terrible, the only response is complete erasure. We learned the lesson. We learned it well, Daiho added. The galaxy thought we would beg. They thought we would accept their condemnation and try to fit into their rules. Instead, we showed them what happens when you push humans too far. The Galactic Council never formally condemned Earth's actions. They couldn't. Every species understood the unspoken truth. If they ever did to humanity what the Valorians had done, they would face the same extinction. Ambassador Giwan remained at the council, but her role had changed. She wasn't there to beg for acceptance anymore. She was there to remind them of humanity's capacity for absolute violence. When provoked, the Terran response fleet didn't disband. Instead, it became the Terran Defense Force, patrolling human space and ensuring no one forgot the lesson. Captain Minji was promoted to Admiral. Engineer Hygiene continued working with Dr. Sora, creating even more terrible weapons that would hopefully never need to be used. Pilot Seokajin returned to civilian life. But he kept his fighter pilot license. Every human did now. The entire species had been militarized by the experience. They would never be caught unprepared again. Years passed, then decades. Humanity expanded into space, and other species gave them wide berth. Human colony ships traveled wherever they wanted, and no one dared to challenge them. In schools across the galaxy, young aliens learned about the Valorian extinction. They saw the footage of the massacre. They saw the footage of humanity's response. Teachers used it as a cautionary tale about the danger of underestimating others. On Earth, museums displayed Valorian artifacts, all that remained of the extinct species. Above the main exhibit, a plaque was installed with a simple message: "They killed 10 million of us to prove they were strong. We removed their entire species to prove we were stronger. May this serve as the last time any species needs this lesson." 200 years after the Valorian extinction, humanity was one of the galaxy's major powers, not because they were the most advanced or the most numerous, but because every species remembered what happened when someone pushed them too far. The unofficial motto of humanity spread across the stars, whispered in 1,000 different languages. We will tolerate much. But there are lines you do not cross. In the darkness between stars, where the new dawn had been destroyed, the memorial station orbited silently. 10 million names were carved into its hull, lit by eternal flames. A reminder of the innocent who died. A warning to those who might forget. The Valorians had wanted to send a message about power and dominance. They had wanted the galaxy to see what happened to those who challenged them. They succeeded. The galaxy saw exactly what happened when you challenged a species. Just not in the way they expected. Humanity had been pushed into the stars, peaceful and hopeful. The Valorians had tried to push them back down. Instead, they created something far more dangerous, a species that would never stop, never forgive, and never forget. The price of 10 million human lives was the extinction of an entire species. And every civilization in the galaxy made sure they never forgot the mathematics of that exchange.